It was a bright and quiet afternoon in a small town, the kind of town where everyone knew each other and life moved slowly. People walked around the park, children played on the swings, and the sound of laughter filled the air. Among the townspeople, there was a woman named Leah. She was in her early 30s, living a simple life. She didn't have much money and she didn't seek attention, but she was known for her kind heart. People trusted her not because she spoke much, but because her actions always showed care. Leah spent her afternoons helping her neighbors, feeding stray animals, or just offering a friendly smile to anyone who needed it. That day, Leah decided to take a short walk by the lake near the park. The lake was calm, with sunlight dancing on its surface, making it look peaceful and inviting. Families were gathered around, enjoying picnics, and children were running and playing by the shore. Leah walked slowly, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the soft breeze on her face. She didn't expect anything unusual to happen. Across the lake, a young boy named Ethan was playing with a small toy boat. He was around 8 years old, curious, energetic, and full of life. Like most children, he didn't think about danger. He ran closer to the water, laughing as his boat floated gently on the lake. In a moment of carelessness, his foot slipped on the wet grass and he tumbled into the water. At first, it seemed like a simple fall, but the water was deeper than he expected. Panic struck immediately. His arms flailed, trying to stay afloat, and he began to cry out for help. People nearby noticed and shouted, but the panic in the boy's eyes made it clear that he couldn't manage on his own. Leah, who was walking along the path, turned around when she heard the commotion. She saw the boy struggling, his little body bobbing up and down in the water, and without thinking twice, she ran towards the lake. Her heart pounded, but there was no hesitation. She didn't consider the risk. All she could see was a child in danger. Leah jumped into the water. The cold hit her immediately, and the current made it difficult to reach the boy quickly, but she pushed forward. She stretched out her arms and grabbed Ethan just as he started to sink beneath the surface. The boy coughed and screamed, frightened by the sudden cold and the panic of the situation, but Leah held him tightly. She swam back to the shore, her own strength challenged, but her determination stronger than anything. When they reached shallow water, Leah pulled Ethan onto the bank. His little body shivered from the cold and tears ran down his face. People gathered around, watching silently, amazed at her bravery. Ethan's parents rushed over, their faces filled with terror and relief. They hugged their son tightly, whispering words of comfort while also looking at Leah with tears in their eyes. "Thank you," they said over and over. "You saved our son. We don't know how to repay you." Leah waved them off, her face calm but tired. "It's okay," she said simply. "I just did what anyone should do. He's safe, and that's what matters." She helped Ethan to his feet, making sure he was steady and warm. The boy looked at her with wide eyes, confused but grateful. He didn't fully understand what had just happened. All he knew was that a kind woman had appeared out of nowhere and saved him from something he couldn't escape on his own. The townspeople started talking about the incident. Some called her a hero. Others shook their heads in disbelief at how bravely she had acted. Leah, however, didn't feel like a hero. She felt a quiet sense of relief that the boy was safe and a little exhaustion from the effort it took. She didn't linger to enjoy the attention. After making sure Ethan was safe and cared for, she simply smiled, said goodbye, and continued her walk around the lake. Ethan's family tried to keep his mind off the event, but the boy couldn't stop thinking about the woman who had saved him. He wanted to ask her questions, to know her name, to understand why she risked herself for a stranger. But she had already walked away, blending back into the ordinary life of the town. The memory of her bravery stayed with him, though, like a spark he couldn't quite explain. Leah returned home that evening, tired but content. She thought little about the day, not realizing how significant her actions would be in the long run. She went about her normal life, cooking dinner, cleaning, and checking on neighbors. For her, it was just another day. But for Ethan, it was the day that changed everything. Over the next few days, people in the town kept talking about Leah's courage. Children who played at the park pointed out the spot where the boy had fallen. Adults recounted the rescue to anyone who would listen. And Ethan's parents made sure to remind him how lucky he was. The story of that sunny afternoon spread quietly, not in newspapers or on television, but in the conversations of those who had witnessed it. It became a part of the town's memory, a small tale of bravery and kindness that would be remembered for years. For Ethan, the event left a deep impression. He began to appreciate life differently, understanding even at a young age that sometimes strangers could be angels in disguise. That realization planted a seed of gratitude and hope that would grow as he did. He didn't know how or when, but he somehow felt that he wanted to meet Leah again to thank her properly, even if he didn't know how to find her. Leah herself didn't think much about the boy after that day. Life kept her busy, and she rarely sought recognition for anything she did. Helping others was simply part of who she was. Yet unknowingly, she had made a mark that would resonate far beyond that small moment in the lake. In the quiet evenings, as she sipped tea and watched the sun dip below the horizon, Leah sometimes reflected on her choices, her past, and the people she had met. She never thought of herself as brave, but there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that courage didn't always have to be loud or recognized. Sometimes the most significant actions were those done without expectation. Meanwhile, Ethan continued with his childhood, playing and learning, always carrying a sense of awe for the woman who saved him. He never forgot her face, the warmth in her eyes, the way she reached for him without hesitation. Even as other events came and went, that memory stayed alive, a small flame of gratitude in his heart. Life moved on in the town. Seasons changed, children grew, and Leah continued her simple, kind life. She didn't realize that the boy she saved would one day carry her act of bravery through years of struggle, determination, and eventual success. She didn't know that this small moment by the lake would one day ripple through time, connecting two lives in a way neither could yet imagine. And so, on that ordinary sunny day by the lake, Leah saved a boy's life. She walked away quietly, her heart calm, unaware that the boy she saved, Ethan, would carry that moment with him forever. The story was just beginning, even if neither of them knew it yet. Little did Leah know 20 years later, this simple act of kindness would return to her in ways that would change her life forever. After that day by the lake, life moved on for both Leah and Ethan, but in very different ways. For Leah, the event was a quiet memory, one of many small acts of kindness she had done over the years. She returned to her daily routine, caring for her home, helping neighbors when she could, and living modestly without seeking praise or attention. The town knew her as someone gentle and dependable, a woman who would lend a hand without hesitation. She rarely thought about that sunny afternoon anymore, though sometimes in quiet moments she remembered the fear in the boy's eyes and the relief she felt when he was safe. It was a small but vivid memory, tucked quietly into the many moments of her life. Ethan, on the other hand, carried that day in his heart in a different way. Even as a young boy, he understood, in the way children sometimes do, that something remarkable had happened to him. He had been given a second chance, and that chance felt precious. The memory of Leah, the woman who had saved him without expecting anything in return, stayed with him like a shadow that followed him through his childhood. He often thought about her and wondered who she was, but he didn't have the tools or courage to find her. Still, that one act of kindness became a quiet inspiration, shaping the way he viewed the world. As the years passed, Ethan grew into a thoughtful and determined young boy. He was intelligent and curious, always asking questions and trying to understand how things worked. He loved learning, but life wasn't always easy. His family didn't have much money, and sometimes they struggled to make ends meet. School was a challenge in its own way. There were days when he worried about fitting in or keeping up, but he never gave up. Even in difficult moments, he remembered the lake, remembered Leah's face and the warmth in her eyes, and it gave him a sense of hope. He wanted to make something of his life, not just for himself, but in some way to honor the gift of life he had been given. Ethan's parents, though ordinary people, encouraged him as best as they could. They were proud of their son, noticing his curiosity, his resilience, and the quiet sense of responsibility he carried. They never fully understood the depth of his determination, but they supported him in every small way they could. Ethan, in turn, tried to make them proud, understanding that their sacrifices and love had helped shape him into the person he was becoming. Yet through it all, Leah's act remained a constant, unseen influence, reminding him that kindness existed in the world and that he wanted to be someone who could, one day, make a difference too. School became a place where Ethan discovered not just learning, but also the small lessons of life. He watched other children, noticed how some were unkind or selfish and how some acted bravely or generously. He began to understand that courage and kindness weren't about fame or reward. They were about choices. Each day he carried Leah's example silently in his heart. Her bravery had been simple but profound. She hadn't hesitated and she hadn't asked for anything in return. That was a lesson Ethan would never forget. At home, Ethan continued to face challenges. Money was tight and there were moments when the family had to go without certain things. Sometimes Ethan felt frustrated or discouraged, but instead of giving in to anger or sadness, he found ways to push forward. He took small jobs to help the family, studied harder to earn scholarships, and found ways to stay focused on his goals. His parents noticed his maturity, often marveling at how their son handled life's difficulties with such quiet strength. What they didn't know was that a seed planted by a stranger's courage had grown deep in his heart, guiding him in ways they could never fully see. Meanwhile, Leah continued to live her modest life. She worked as a part-time librarian in the local community center, a job she loved because it allowed her to help people and spend her days surrounded by books. In the evenings, she would sometimes sit quietly by her window, sipping tea and watching the world go by. She had a small group of friends, people she trusted and cared for, and she spent time helping neighbors whenever she could. She didn't seek recognition, and the town had grown used to her quiet presence. A woman who quietly made life better for those around her. Yet, in her heart, Leah sometimes wondered if she had made a meaningful impact on anyone beyond that moment at the lake. She didn't know that the boy she saved was growing up thinking about her every day. Ethan's teenage years brought new opportunities and challenges. He continued to excel in school, often studying late into the night, sometimes with only a small lamp lighting his room. He faced moments of doubt, wondering if he would ever achieve something significant, but he remembered the second chance he had been given. Leah's courage had shown him that even in frightening situations, hope could exist. That memory, small and simple as it was, gave him strength when nothing else seemed to help. Through high school, Ethan started to develop dreams that went beyond just surviving or helping his family. He wanted to build something meaningful, something that could make a difference. He began reading about business, learning from successful people, and understanding how hard work and determination could change lives. But even as he planned for the future, he never forgot the quiet woman who had saved him. That memory was like a compass, guiding him toward integrity, kindness, and perseverance. He often imagined that if he succeeded, he would one day find Leah and thank her properly. Leah, meanwhile, faced her own quiet struggles. Life had its difficulties. Sometimes money was tight, sometimes health issues arose. But she handled them with the same calm resilience she had always shown. She never sought pity or attention, choosing instead to focus on helping those around her. She had moments of reflection in the evenings, thinking about the lives she had touched, but she rarely considered the long-term impact of her actions. The lake incident was a faint memory in her mind, like a quiet echo from the past, one that she rarely revisited. The years continued to pass, and both Leah and Ethan grew in ways they could not have imagined. Ethan's determination led him to scholarships, part-time work, and opportunities to learn skills that would help him in the future. Each small success fueled his ambition, and each setback strengthened his resolve. He became more confident, more capable, and more aware of the world around him. Through it all, Leah's act of courage remained a quiet but powerful influence, reminding him of the importance of selflessness, bravery, and kindness. Ethan's connection to Leah, though unseen and unspoken, became a central part of his identity. He understood that the world could be cruel and unpredictable, but he also realized that it could be kind and transformative. That single afternoon by the lake had taught him more than he could have learned in a lifetime of lessons. It had shown him that one person's courage could change another person's life forever. For Leah, life continued quietly. She found joy in small things, helping a neighbor, organizing a book club, feeding stray animals, but she remained unaware of the profound impact she had had on Ethan's life. She went about her days with the same humility and grace, never imagining that the boy she saved would grow into a young man shaped, in part by her selfless act. Even as Ethan faced challenges, the memory of Leah gave him hope. When life seemed overwhelming, he thought of her courage, her calm determination in the face of danger, and it inspired him to keep going. That inspiration guided him through difficult choices, late nights, and moments of self-doubt. He knew that one day he wanted to honor the woman who had given him a chance at life, not with words alone, but with actions that could show his gratitude in a meaningful way. As the story of Ethan and Leah continued quietly over the years, one thing became clear. Small acts of kindness could have enormous consequences. Leah's bravery, simple and unassuming, planted a seed that would grow in Ethan's heart, influencing his choices, shaping his character, and ultimately guiding his path toward success. Neither of them could have imagined at the time how intertwined their lives would become, but the foundation was set on that sunny afternoon by the lake, where courage met vulnerability, and a young boy's life was saved by a woman's selfless act. And so, as the years went by, Leah remained the quiet hero she had always been, and Ethan grew into a determined young man, carrying with him the memory of the woman who had changed his life. Their stories continued separately for now, but the invisible thread connecting them grew stronger with each passing year, ready to bring them back together in a future neither could yet foresee. As Ethan grew into a young adult, the lessons of his childhood stayed with him. The memory of Leah, the woman who had saved him from drowning, was a quiet presence in his life. He didn't see her every day, and she wasn't part of his daily routine, but the thought of her courage shaped the person he was becoming. It was a reminder that one simple act could change a life forever, and that idea motivated him in ways he could barely explain. Every decision he made, every obstacle he faced carried a silent question. Am I living in a way that honors the life I was given? Ethan's teenage years had been full of determination, and now as he moved into adulthood, that determination grew stronger. He was accepted into a good college, an opportunity he had worked tirelessly to earn. Scholarships and part-time jobs had allowed him to continue his education despite financial challenges, but it was never easy. Many nights he stayed up late, studying by the dim light of a small desk lamp, sometimes feeling exhausted and discouraged. But whenever he thought about the life he had been given, about the second chance from that sunny day by the lake, he found the strength to keep going. College life introduced Ethan to new experiences and challenges. He met people from different backgrounds, each with their own stories of struggle and success. Some students were privileged and had opportunities handed to them. Others, like Ethan, had to fight for every small achievement. These experiences taught him lessons beyond the classroom. He learned about resilience, about the value of hard work, and about the importance of integrity. Every challenge was a test, and every small victory reinforced his belief that he could achieve something meaningful. While studying, Ethan also began to explore his future. He had always been fascinated by business, by the way people created solutions, managed resources, and built something from nothing. He spent hours reading books, watching interviews, and learning from mentors whenever he could. Some nights, when he felt tired or overwhelmed, he thought about Leah's bravery again. He imagined her calm face, the way she had acted without hesitation, and it reminded him that courage wasn't about power or money. It was about action and choice. That thought gave him clarity and motivation. Ethan didn't forget his family during this time. He wanted to make life better for them as well, knowing that they had supported him in countless ways. His parents had worked hard to give him opportunities, often sacrificing their own comfort. He wanted to honor that, and he worked tirelessly to succeed not just for himself but for them too. He took on extra jobs, sometimes skipping sleep to complete assignments, balancing work, study, and his own personal growth. The path wasn't easy, but every step felt purposeful. As Ethan moved through college, he faced setbacks too. There were times when a business idea failed, or a project didn't turn out as expected. There were moments of self-doubt, where he wondered if he was doing the right thing or if he would ever achieve the goals he had set for himself. During these moments, he remembered Leah. He thought about how she had jumped into the lake without a second thought, saving him when he was helpless. That memory became a source of inspiration, a reminder that courage and determination could overcome fear and uncertainty. After graduating, Ethan began his first real steps into the business world. He worked for small companies, learning the ropes, gaining experience, and slowly building confidence in his abilities. He faced challenges daily, from tight deadlines to complex projects, but he approached each task with the same determination he had carried since childhood. His mind often wandered back to Leah, thinking about how a single act of kindness had given him the chance to pursue these opportunities. The idea that he could one day repay her in some way became a quiet goal that guided his decisions. Over the next few years, Ethan's hard work began to pay off. He started his own small business, cautious at first, learning from mistakes and adapting quickly. There were many sleepless nights, moments of worry and times when he doubted his choices, but he kept moving forward. Each small success built momentum, and gradually his efforts began to produce results. The business grew, slowly at first, then more steadily, and Ethan began to see the fruits of his labor. He felt a mix of pride and humility, knowing that none of it would have been possible without the life he had been given, and without the courage of a woman he had never stopped thinking about. Even as his success grew, Ethan remained grounded. He didn't let money or recognition change the values he had learned as a child. He remembered the fear and helplessness he had felt in the water, and the way Leah had acted selflessly. That memory kept him humble and kind, reminding him that life's true rewards came from actions, not material wealth. He also began to think more seriously about finding Leah, the woman who had changed his life. He didn't just want to say thank you. He wanted to ensure she knew the impact she had made, and he wanted to offer her support in a way that could genuinely help her life. Meanwhile, Leah continued her quiet, modest life. She worked at the library, helped her neighbors, and maintained her small but meaningful routines. She never imagined that Ethan, the boy she had saved so many years ago, was growing into a successful young man. She rarely thought about that sunny afternoon at the lake anymore, except in fleeting moments of reflection. Life had its challenges for her too. Sometimes bills were difficult to manage, sometimes health concerns arose, but she faced each challenge with quiet resilience. Leah's life was simple, filled with small joys and small acts of kindness, and she never sought recognition for anything she did. Ethan, now a young man in his 20s, had begun to see his dreams take shape. He had built a successful business from scratch, earning recognition and financial stability. Yet even amidst this success, his mind often wandered to Leah. He thought about how different his life might have been if she hadn't acted that day by the lake. He realized that every opportunity he had, every chance he had been given, was connected to her bravery. That thought filled him with gratitude, and he decided that it was time to find her. Finding Leah wasn't easy. Ethan didn't know where she lived, and the small town had changed over the years. He asked around, spoke to old neighbors, and retraced steps he remembered from his childhood. Each small lead gave him hope, and each dead end only strengthened his determination. The search was slow and sometimes frustrating, but Ethan knew it was worth it. He wanted to show Leah that her courage had mattered, that it had rippled through time to shape a life in ways she could never have imagined. As he searched, Ethan also reflected on his own journey. He realized how much he had grown, how many challenges he had overcome, and how far his determination had taken him. Yet he also knew that this journey wasn't just about success. It was about gratitude, humility, and the human connections that define our lives. Leah's act had been a turning point, not just in his life, but in the way he understood the world. Courage, kindness, and selflessness were not abstract concepts. They were real forces that could shape destinies. Ethan's life had become a balance of hard work, careful planning, and reflection. He continued to expand his business, taking on new challenges and learning from every mistake. Each achievement reminded him of the value of persistence and integrity. But no matter how busy he became, he never let the memory of Leah fade. That memory was a compass guiding his choices and reminding him of what truly mattered. Even as he gained wealth and recognition, Ethan remained humble. He lived modestly, treated people with respect, and never forgot the lessons of his past. He often donated quietly to causes he believed in, helped colleagues without seeking credit, and made sure to be fair in every business decision. In all of this, the influence of Leah's courage was evident. Her single act of bravery had instilled in him the values that shaped his adulthood. And so, Ethan's journey continued. From a boy saved from drowning to a determined young adult carving a path for himself, every step of his life was shaped by the quiet heroism of a woman he had barely known. Her courage had given him a chance at life, and that chance had fueled his determination, guiding him toward success and preparing him for the day when he could finally repay the kindness that had changed everything. The story of Ethan and Leah was far from over. Though their paths had diverged for many years, the invisible connection between them remained strong. One day, Ethan knew he would find her, and when he did, he would show her the true impact of her selfless act. Until then, he continued to grow, to work, and to live in a way that honored the gift she had given him, carrying her courage in his heart as he faced each new challenge. After years of hard work and determination, Ethan had finally reached a point in his life where he felt secure and accomplished. His business had grown steadily, providing him financial stability, recognition, and a sense of achievement he had once only dreamed about. Yet no matter how busy he became or how many people he met, one thought remained constant in his heart: the woman who had saved his life all those years ago. Leah. He had carried her image and her courage in his mind for decades, and now, with the stability and resources he had gained, he was determined to find her. Finding Leah was not easy. The town had changed in 20 years, and people had moved, houses had changed hands, and memories had faded. Ethan started by revisiting the places he remembered from his childhood: the park by the lake, the streets he used to walk, and even the small library where he vaguely recalled seeing her. He asked the older neighbors, spoke with the librarians, and tried to gather any clue about where Leah might be living now. Some people remembered her vaguely, describing her as a kind woman who always helped others, but no one seemed to know where she lived. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ethan faced frustration, wondering if he would ever find her, but he refused to give up. The thought of Leah's selfless act, her courage in jumping into the lake without a second thought, kept him motivated. He realized that her bravery had given him life, not just physically, but in a deeper sense, guiding him through challenges, inspiring him to work hard, and shaping the man he had become. Finding her now felt like the most important goal of all, a way to repay a debt that could never truly be measured in money or gifts. Finally, after persistent searching, Ethan received a small clue from an old friend of his parents. They remembered Leah's family and mentioned that she still lived in the same modest house near the edge of town. Ethan's heart raced as he approached the address. The house was simple, with a small garden in front, and it looked much like he had imagined. He parked his car quietly and walked toward the door, feeling a mix of anticipation, nervousness, and excitement. What would she think when she saw him after 20 years? Would she even remember him? He knocked on the door, and after a moment it opened. There she was, Leah, slightly older now, with gentle eyes and a warm smile. She looked at him curiously, wondering who this young man was standing at her doorstep. Ethan smiled and introduced himself softly. "Hello, my name is Ethan," he said, his voice a mix of calm and emotion. I don't know if you remember me, but you saved my life when I was a child." Leah's eyes widened as she looked at him. For a moment she was silent, her mind racing back to that sunny afternoon by the lake. She remembered the boy who had fallen, the panic and the fear, and then her own hands reaching out to save him. She looked at the young man standing before her now, grown, confident, and successful, and her heart filled with a mixture of surprise, awe, and emotion. Slowly, recognition dawned on her face, and tears welled up in her eyes. "Ethan, is that really you?" she whispered. Ethan nodded, smiling warmly. "Yes, it's me. I wanted to find you for a long time. I wanted to say thank you properly for what you did. You saved my life, and I've never forgotten it." Leah's hands trembled slightly as she reached out, and they embraced, a long, emotional hug that carried decades of gratitude, relief, and shared humanity. They stepped inside and sat together, talking slowly at first, letting the weight of the moment settle. Ethan told her about his childhood, his struggles, and how that one act of bravery had stayed with him, shaping his choices and giving him hope in times of difficulty. He spoke about his education, his work, and how he had built a life through perseverance and hard work. Leah listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride and humility. She had never imagined that her simple act of courage could have such a profound impact. Leah shared her own story as well. She told Ethan about her life over the years, her work at the library, her small acts of kindness, and the challenges she had faced. She spoke modestly, never expecting praise, yet Ethan could see the quiet strength and resilience in her eyes, the same strength that had once saved him from drowning. Their conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter, tears, and moments of reflection. It was as if no time had passed at all, yet every year of separation had added depth to their connection. Ethan wanted to make sure Leah understood how much her actions had meant. He explained that he didn't just want to say thank you. He wanted to honor her and show her the impact of her bravery. He told her that because of her courage, he had found the strength to face life's challenges, to persevere through hardships, and to build a life he could be proud of. Leah's eyes filled with tears again, realizing that something she had done without thought or expectation had created ripples that extended far beyond that day. Leah felt a mix of emotions: pride, humility, and gratitude. She realized that courage and kindness were not small things. Even when they seemed ordinary in the moment, she had acted instinctively, without expecting anything in return, and yet her act had shaped a life in ways she could never have imagined. Seeing Ethan grown, accomplished, and full of gratitude was a moment of profound joy for her, a confirmation that even small acts of bravery could have enormous impact. As they talked, Ethan also shared his desire to support Leah in her life. He knew she had lived simply without much financial comfort, and he wanted to offer help, not as charity but as a repayment of the debt of gratitude he felt in his heart. Leah initially resisted, hesitant to accept gifts or assistance, but Ethan gently insisted. "This isn't about charity," he said. "It's about acknowledging what you did for me. You saved my life, and now I want to be there for you in any way you need." Leah hesitated, the humility she had always carried making it difficult to accept. But as she looked at Ethan, she realized that this was not about pride or ego. It was about connection, gratitude, and human kindness. She slowly nodded, understanding that accepting his support was a way to honor the bond they now shared, a bond forged in bravery and gratitude. They spent the afternoon together, walking through the small garden in front of Leah's house, reminiscing about the past, sharing stories of the years they had spent apart, and imagining the possibilities of the future. Leah realized that life had a way of returning kindness in unexpected ways, and Ethan understood the profound power of gratitude and human connection. Their reunion was more than just emotional, it was transformative. It reminded both of them that acts of courage and kindness, even when done quietly and without expectation, could shape destinies and change lives forever. In the following days, Ethan helped Leah with small improvements around her home, ensuring she was comfortable and taken care of. He also encouraged her to pursue her own dreams and passions, offering support in ways that allowed her to maintain her independence and dignity. Leah began to see the impact of her own actions reflected back at her, not just in gratitude, but in tangible improvements to her life. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and joy, realizing that kindness, when given freely, often returns in ways we cannot predict. The reunion between Ethan and Leah also sparked conversations in the town. Neighbors and old friends heard the story and were inspired by the extraordinary bond between the woman who had saved a life and the young man who had returned to honor her. Their story became a reminder to everyone that courage, selflessness, and gratitude were values worth cherishing. It inspired others to act with kindness, to recognize the power of small actions, and to understand that every decision, no matter how small, could ripple through time in unexpected ways. Through this reunion, both Ethan and Leah learned important lessons about life, courage, and human connection. Ethan realized that true success wasn't measured only by wealth or recognition, but by the impact one had on others and the relationships built through compassion and integrity. Leah understood that even small, quiet acts of bravery could have a lasting influence, shaping lives in ways she could never have imagined. Together, they shared a bond that transcended time, distance, and circumstance, a bond created through courage, gratitude, and the human capacity for selfless action. And so, their reunion marked not only a moment of emotional fulfillment, but also a turning point in both of their lives. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with mutual respect, gratitude, and the joy of knowing that even the simplest acts of kindness could create ripples that last a lifetime. Ethan's return had not only repaid a debt of gratitude, but had also reinforced the enduring power of human connection, reminding both of them and everyone who heard their story that courage, selflessness, and love could shape lives in extraordinary ways. After their emotional reunion, Ethan and Leah began spending more time together. For Leah, it was strange at first, having someone so young and successful in her home insisting on helping her. She had lived quietly for years, used to handling everything on her own, and accepting help was not easy. But Ethan approached it gently, always respecting her independence while quietly making life easier for her. He fixed small things around the house, repaired the leaky faucet that had been bothering her, and helped rearrange her modest garden. Leah found herself laughing more than she had in years, enjoying his company, and appreciating his thoughtfulness without feeling like her pride was compromised. Ethan also wanted Leah to enjoy life in ways she had never allowed herself. He encouraged her to take short trips to nearby towns, to visit the places she had always wanted to see, and even helped her reconnect with old friends she had lost touch with. Leah initially hesitated, thinking these things were unnecessary luxuries, but Ethan insisted gently, reminding her that she had given him a gift without expecting anything. And now it was time for him to return the kindness. Slowly, Leah began to embrace these moments, realizing that life could be beautiful and fulfilling even in her later years. One day, as they sat together in her garden, Ethan brought up a long-held idea. "Leah," he said softly, "you changed my life. You gave me a chance I didn't even realize I needed. I want to make sure your life is just as full and happy as you've made mine." Leah shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I didn't do anything extraordinary," she replied, her voice humble. "I just did what anyone should do." But Ethan smiled, shaking his head gently. "No, you did something extraordinary. That day you saved me, and that act guided everything I've done since. You deserve more than gratitude. You deserve joy and peace in your life, and I want to help give that to you." Leah eventually agreed, and together they began making small changes in her life. Ethan helped her pay off old debts that had been a quiet burden for years. He arranged for medical checkups, making sure she was healthy and cared for. He even renovated parts of her home to make it safer and more comfortable, always consulting with her, never imposing his ideas. For Leah, this was a new experience, accepting help without feeling guilty, allowing herself to enjoy life in ways she had never imagined. The town soon learned about Ethan's return and his generosity. People were curious and amazed at the story of the boy who had been saved from drowning, now grown into a successful man, returning to honor the woman who had changed his life. Neighbors and friends visited, expressing admiration for Leah's courage and for Ethan's humility and gratitude. The story inspired many in the town, reminding them of the power of kindness and the ripple effects of a single selfless act. As they spent more time together, Leah and Ethan's bond grew deeper. They shared memories of the past, laughter, and stories of the years they had spent apart. Leah found herself opening up more than she had in decades, and Ethan was inspired by her wisdom and quiet strength. He realized that this connection was about more than repayment. It was about shared humanity, respect, and the profound impact that one life could have on another. Ethan also introduced Leah to small projects he was passionate about, helping local children, funding community programs, and supporting causes that mattered to her. Leah was initially hesitant to participate, thinking she was too ordinary to contribute meaningfully, but Ethan encouraged her, saying that her experience, wisdom, and compassion were just as valuable as financial support. Slowly, she began to see that helping others could still be part of her life, now with support and resources that made it easier and more fulfilling. Together, they even started organizing small community events, celebrating courage and kindness and sharing their story to inspire others. Children would gather around, listening with wide eyes as Leah told them about the day she had saved a boy from drowning, and Ethan would share how that act had inspired his entire life. The town began to embrace their story, recognizing that heroism didn't have to be grand or public. It could be quiet, personal, and transformative. Over time, Leah began to experience a sense of freedom and joy she hadn't felt in years. She could travel without worry, enjoy new experiences, and spend time with people who appreciated her for who she was. She realized that life had a way of rewarding quiet courage, not always immediately but eventually in ways that were deeply meaningful. Seeing Ethan's success and knowing